When conflict breaks out in the Middle East, many Malaysians may not immediately think about international politics. They may think about something much closer to their daily life, the price shown at the petrol station. A conflict between the US and Iran does not only happen on the distant map, it can travel through global oil markets, shipping routes, government subsidies, and logistic costs, and eventually into the wallets of ordinary people. The key issue is the Middle East's importance to global energy supply. The region has long been one of the world's major sources of crude oil. At the same time, the Strait of Hormuz is one of the most important routes for global energy transportation. If conflict escalates, the market will immediately become worried. Can oil tankers still pass through safely? Will shipping costs increase? Will global oil supply become unstable? In oil market, uncertainty itself is enough to push prices forward. When international crude oil price rise, Malaysia's petrol market will also come under pressure. Although Malaysia is an oil-producing country, this does not mean domestic petrol prices are fully protected from global market changes. Petrol prices are not only about crude oil, they also involve refining, imports, transportation, taxes, subsidies, and the government pricing mechanisms. In other words, when global oil prices rise, someone has to absorb the extra cost. It may be the government, it may be businesses, or eventually it may be consumers. For many ordinary drivers, the most direct protection comes from government subsidies. RON95 is the most closely watched petrol type because it is directly connected to the daily commutes of many Malaysians. Through subsidies, the government tries to keep petrol affordable for eligible consumers and reduce the immediate impact of international oil price fluctuations. However, subsidies do not make the cost disappear. They simply move part of the pressure from the consumer's fuel tank to the government budget. When international oil prices become higher, the government has to spend more money to maintain lower petrol prices. This creates a difficult question. Where should the money come from? If fuel subsidies take up too much public spending, the government may have less fiscal space for other areas such as education, healthcare, public transport, infrastructure, and social assistance. So, rising petrol prices are not only a problem for drivers, they are also a public finance issue. For ordinary people, the impact is not limited to paying a few more ringgit at a petrol station. Petrol and diesel are basic costs in the economy. Lorries need to fuel to transport goods, delivery riders need to fuel to send food and parcels, buses, logistics companies, and businesses all depend on energy to keep operating. Once transportation costs increase, the prices of goods, daily necessities, online deliveries, construction materials, and even services may also rise. This is why an increase in the global oil prices can eventually become an increase in the cost of living. Lower income groups are especially vulnerable to this pressure. They usually spend a larger share on their income on transport, food, and basic needs. Even if petrol prices at the station do not rise sharply, price increases in other goods and services can still affect their daily lives. Businesses are also affected. The logistics sector, transport companies, manufacturers, airlines, and small businesses may all face high operating costs. Large companies may have more ways to absorb the pressure through contracts, stockpiles, or price adjustments. But small businesses often have fewer choices. They may have to accept lower profits, raise prices, or reduce expenses. This explains why petrol prices often become a social issue. They do not only affect transportation, they affect the cost structure of the entire economy. Looking ahead, Malaysia may face three possible choices. The first is to continue fuel subsidies. This can protect people from short-term cost of living pressure, but it will increase the burden on government finances. The second is to gradually adjust subsidies and focus support on those who need it most, such as lower-income households, public transport, and key logistics sectors. The third is to speed up energy transition by improving public transport, increasing energy efficiency, and reducing long-term dependence on petrol. But none of these choices is easy. Reducing subsidies may create public dissatisfaction. Continuing large subsidies may weaken government finances. Energy transition, meanwhile, requires requires time, investment, and infrastructure. Therefore, the Middle East conflict gives Malaysia an important reminder. Global crises do not stay inside news headlines. They can move through a barrel of crude oil, a shipping route, a government budget, and finally become part of our daily transport cost, food prices, and living expenses. Rising oil prices may look like a market issue, but behind them is a chain reaction involving energy security, fiscal policy, business costs, and the everyday struggles of ordinary people. When the world becomes unstable, the real question for Malaysia is not only whether petrol prices will rise. The bigger question is, when the next energy shock arrives, will our society be prepared enough to absorb it?